And welcome to another Positively Gainesville podcast, broadcasting from Liberty Crossing today, the Cook County Sports Talk studio. Darren Allred, joined by our good mayor, the mayor of Gainesville, Jim Goldsworthy. How you doing today, Jim?
Good, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. Good to have you on our podcast. We talked about it in the first one, that this is just a chance for us to talk about some of the great things going on in Gainesville. And, of course, you, being the mayor, would know about a lot of those things. You're a part of them day in and day out. But before we get started in talking about some of that, give us some background. How long have you been the mayor of Gainesville now?
Yeah, Darren. Hey, thanks for the platform. Really like what you're doing with the show and what you guys do for the community, for real. I've been the mayor. I'm in my fourth term as mayor, 2-year terms. I was the mayor pro tem for 3 terms prior to that, so about 14 years on city council.
So in that time, whether it be as a city councilman or now the mayor, what are some of the things that you're most proud of that have been accomplished during your tenure there?
Yeah, Darren. So we've got a lot of wins. It's been it's like anything else, right? That you get out of what you put into something, and that's kind of been my platform. Is just kind of how I've lived my life. Love Gainesville, love Cook County. You and I have done a lot together over the years. You know, you were the one that got me to be in charge of the playground build originally, if you recall that.
That's at the top of my resume. I put that down there.
Well, good. Yeah. You promised me a co-chair, and then all of a sudden they didn't show up, right? But, you know, that project was kind of my first, although I had been, I think, the chamber president at that point a long time ago. You know, that playground build was kind of a real salient moment for me as far as how cool our community was when we had 2,100 volunteers out there building that playground. You know, it just really showed on so many levels how cool Gainesville was, the people of Gainesville were, that they would do something like that. And it's just kind of gone exponentially from there. So, you know, I can look at the park and the playground and the train and the pool, and I can look at the development in the community. You know, the fact that, you know, 14 years ago we were a junk bond rated city, and you know, now we're AA rated, which is a 9-point improvement, which is from a financial standpoint, the efficiencies of Gainesville, Texas, with the stewardship of our city manager and our department heads, but really every one of our city employees understanding that every single dollar is a taxpayer dollar, and it needs to be spent really, really wisely. I would put our city, from an efficiency standpoint, up against any city in the country. We don't waste money. That was a charge years and years ago. We won't raise taxes until we're efficient. You know, I'll get close to right. I joke with Barry, I always round up on most things, but I think we were pressing. There was a petition to go to 73 or 75 cents back 14 years ago on a tax rate. Junk bond rated, no money in reserve. We just voted on a 69-cent tax rate last council meeting. We should ratify that in September, with $60 million spent on infrastructure, with 400 dilapidated structures removed, which one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. You can go just kind of almost like neighborhood by neighborhood and see the improvements for a lot of faceted reasons. You know, devoted business owners, devoted community volunteers. There's a lot of wins. It's really, and none of that's a me thing. We've got a really good team on city council that has really good conversations. We're one of the few cities in the state that is transparent as we are. Our checkbook's online. Our website's up to date. We've got actually a working 5-year plan that we can tell you, you know, why we've been able to build pools for cash and fire trucks and not have to go into debt because of the plans that we've put in place, which I'm really, really proud of that. That, you know, when I talk to, and I say all this with the full realization, we've always got work to do, you know, and when we hear about, you know, this pothole or this project, I want to do them all. And then it's just like if you're, you know, in your household, right? You want everything. You want the nicest house and a brand new car and a pool in the backyard. And then you have to marry that with what can you afford in relation to what you make. Here, in relation to how many taxes or how big the tax rate is all a fine balance there. So we're winning on a lot of fronts with the full realization you never get to that place. You know, you look at roads and infrastructure. When I can, you know, very proud to say we've spent $60 million in infrastructure, and we were getting calls from Frisco wanting to know how we're doing so much in Gainesville on street and utilities in relation to a brand new city. It's great. Or do we still have bad roads? Yeah, we do, and we need to fix them all. The challenge is it's when we're doing a new updated study this year, the last one showed about a $230 million need for streets. Well, it's like I told a friend one time when they were, you know, petitioning for an expansion of the Civic Center. You know, build a new, you know, we need to add on, add on, and add on. I said, we can do it tomorrow. How high do you want taxes to be, right? It's a balancing act. So, you know, even though, you know, Broadway Street, tip to tail, is almost redone, Culberson is going to be great. You know, it's taken a long time for Culberson. We've had the largest rainfall in recorded history.
Right.
But when we finish Culberson and then go on to the next street, you know, down the road, the city leaders are going to be back redoing Culberson 50 years from now. And it just never stops. You know, for the longest time in our country, people came back from World War II. We didn't pay a lot of attention to infrastructure. And Gainesville was not immune to that. It was neglected. It's not being neglected now. It's never going to be perfect, but we're going to do our dead level best to make it as good as possible.
Yeah, and you mentioned the streets. It's not just streets. When you talk about as soon as you get finished with one, another need's going to rise. Water, sewer lines, you know, and I know that's all part of the street and utility maintenance project, the sump
Right.
project, is you're going in and you're doing it all. You're not just going in there and paving over a street. Why do that? And then a year from now, a water line busts and you've got to get in there and fix it.
Invariably, if you don't do it all, as soon as that concrete cures or the asphalt sets, the water line breaks and you're digging up. You've seen that on Grand Avenue, unfortunately. You know, we have old infrastructure, you know, and it's unfortunately, you know, we have the potholes. We try to address them, and I encourage on our website there's a place to report leaks or potholes. You know, and you can, and people will choose to do it on Facebook and feel good about the blathering out there. But the place to report it, you know, is on our website. It's recorded. Then it goes to the right department. If it's not addressed, it goes back to the city manager, who goes back to the department head. It's interesting. You know, it's interesting. From a business owner standpoint, from a guy that raised some great kids in this community, to then as the mayor, right, and finding the balance there of you know, trying to figure out what's best in the direction of our city. And nobody has the easy button answer for that. That's a culmination of a lot of good conversation, and back to that 5-year plan. You know, I put an article once a month now in the Register, and appreciate that platform. I do it, the superintendent of schools, the head of the hospital, et cetera. And my last column was, you know, the strength of any community, and we beat most any place I've ever even heard of. Whether it's the Medal of Honor program or the Boys and Girls Club or the Boys and Girls Club Gala or Pick'em. It's every weekend, right? But the number of people that really give a darn and try to make a positive difference in our community is incredible. When there's a need, people rally behind it. You know, an $8.5 million private money raise to build a Boys and Girls Club, with the realization that these kiddos, these families need the help, and then they can develop and grow into contributing members of society with all of the best down there. That doesn't happen by accident. You know, that we can maintain a zoo and the things that we do. It's all about the people and their willingness to care, donate their time and their talent back to the community. And we've talked about, and you know, I can't help, because I try to listen to everybody. I can't help, but I try not to get down into the ditch of the, whether it's the rants and raves or whatever it is, right? We can look at things like the Liberty Crossing build and, you know, how contentious it is. And I like that thing, change is good, you go first, right?
Right.
And, you know, how that was going to be the blight of Gainesville. And now, you know, in 48 years, the city will own that. But in the meantime, it's 100% occupied. We've got, again, one of the lowest unemployment rates, and there's nice quality places for people to live. We're seeing such an uptick in housing starts, not just in Gainesville, but in the entirety of the county. We're making big strides. You know, I've got a great relationship with the mayors of Denison and Sherman and work with them on some boards. You know, there's no reason that we can't have at least a regional mindset, but specifically in Cook County, you know, as the mayor of Gainesville, obviously I'm thinking Gainesville, but I think Cook County, right? And include Denton and Love County, because when we create jobs in Gainesville, it's a benefit for the entirety of the county. And when they build a new housing addition in Lindsay, it helps fill the jobs that are in Gainesville. So it's good that we can work hand in glove. You know, we can't, I don't think, in my opinion, have a silo mindset where, you know, I live on an island out here affected by no others, right? But that's a great thing about our community is in most platforms, you know, and if we can get past the noise of the people that figure out what can't ever work and what's wrong and broken. And I feel bad for those people because they're usually the ones that I never see trying to fix anything. And I feel bad for them from a standpoint, they're missing it. You know, they're missing the opportunity of being involved and making a difference, a positive difference in the world. I'm never afraid to call my baby ugly, right? If when we have problems, I mean, you ask Barry. I mean, if I see something, I'm calling and say, hey, why is this like this? Now, I can't call and say, hey, why do we need $200 million more of roads to be repaired? Well, that's obvious. They're there. It wasn't paid attention to. We're getting all we can, right? So while it's really interesting in today's world of so many news outlets, right? And that's why I appreciate a platform like this. And I really welcome open dialogue with anybody. And then, you know, conversation is a lost art. I've nicknamed my conference room table in my office the middle. And that somewhere in the middle lies the truth, right? And so it's been amazing to me when I get people together in there that are what they think are 180s apart. And at the end of the day, they're only, you know, they're a millimeter apart. And then we can come to an agreement and a solution and figure out problems. That's fun. It can be a little bit like, good grief, but it's fun when we can come up to solutions like that.
Yeah, and maybe of all the things you just talked about, the thing that interests me the most as far as seeing happen is people report problems, suggestions, whatever you want to call them, to the actual city instead of putting them on social media. How much better would life be if we actually tried to solve the problem instead of complain about the problem?
Well, life would be pretty simple at that standpoint. But it's you know,
it's the world we live in. I understand.
It's the world we live in. Yeah, the 24-hour news cycle. It's just that there's so many platforms for news. It amazes me that people think they could engage somebody on any social platform and change their mind. You know, I just as soon go out and pick weeds in the backyard to make progress in the world as opposed to try to, you know, go in the deliberation of whatever the topic is on social media.
Right.
It's the trolls out there are just, you're never going to win. And why would you waste your energy trying?
Yeah. A couple minutes left here. I wanted to quickly get your thoughts on, because a lot of the things you mentioned, a lot of improvements in the city, the good things going on in the city are things that maybe people don't see. We don't see the water lines. We don't see the improvements made at the sewer plant. We just know that when we flush our toilet, you know, something good happens instead of something bad. But one of the things that we do see that is good is the transformation of Interstate 35. Just from the city's perspective, talk about how satisfying that is to see new businesses come in and really kind of give the city a whole new look on I-35.
Right. So very intentionally over many, many years, you know, we've worked towards where we are today. When we get there, right, we've still got a ton of work to do. We've always got to be forward thinking. But yeah, it's really cool that, you know, when we're in it every single day, you don't notice it as much, the transformation. But I'm hearing more and more from people that either lived here or had visited here and are back here thinking, wow, what's going on in Gainesville? Whether it's the Chick-fil-A corner and the First State Bank build and what used to be the 12 Oaks, or if it's the 400 houses that are now torn down throughout the different neighborhoods, but specifically the I-35 corridor, you know, that's why very intentionally around the park and Rib Crib and Via Grande, we wanted that to be, it's our front door and you got one chance at it, right? So when people come into our town, that really, really cool Medal of Honor park, right? That if you looked back, I wish we had a picture of 10 years ago of what that was, that the trees looked like bushes, the old dilapidated Chamber of Commerce building, the broken down water treatment facility on the other side. I've got it in my head. I don't have an actual picture of it, but now that cool marquee. So very intentionally, you know, the first impression is important. And what's really cool about it is all of that development has been private driven, right? So the city, there are cities that will incent, you know, retail development. We don't have to do that. We're at a point now where people are seeking us out to say, hey, I want to develop there. You know, we're seeing it downtown now around the square and the farmers market. What used to be empty structures that were very, very low priced are now selling for some very handsome prices because people see the power of what's going on. It's contagious from whether I don't know if we'll look back and call it the Chick-fil-A factor or what it is. It's a combination of a lot of things that have been very intentional to get to this point. And it is it's very rewarding to see that. It's very rewarding to see that from the people that I see that are now moving here, new, and saying, what a cool place this is. I had some clients in last week. They're like, and they actually said this, and my friends give me a hard time about it. They're like, this is like Mayberry. And, you know, and you've heard me say it, and a mantra a long time ago is, why can't we be like a modern day Mayberry? Why can't we be a place where we can raise a family in a great environment to then send them to school, but want them to come home because it's a cool place to live and the jobs are here? If you think about that, whether it's Morgan at the Chamber, or there's numerous other kids that's happened to, so it's starting to come to fruition. And I've been misquoted as saying that, you know, we want to be like Frisco. That's insane. You know, we can be a really, really cool town of 30 or 40,000 people. Pleasantly, we've been forward enough thinking in councils 40 years ago to get Moss Lake and the groundwater. We bought 10,000 acre feet of Texoma. We have the capacity of a community of about 250,000 people in water, which people don't realize that, and that's okay. 50 years from now, that's going to be a really big deal, right? So that's as simple as, you know, efficiency. Don't waste taxpayer dollars. Get all we can for the dollars that we do make. Jobs and creating a really cool, safe, prosperous environment. We can check those boxes. We're going to continue to win.
Well, hey, I speak for a lot of people when I say thank you for what you do, because maybe some people don't know that it's a volunteer position. The mayor does not get paid. City council members do not get paid. You sacrifice time and energy to do that, and so thanks for all you do. And
it's my pleasure to serve.
Keep serving. We enjoy it for sure. There's Jim Goldsworthy, Positively Gainesville podcast.